Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Eddie Lager Power Hour, one of two shows that we're running on Midwestern Marks right now. Earlier today, Carlos, along with our comrade Haas, released another episode of Escaping the Cave. I recommend everybody go and check that out, as well as another episode with a former Fox News viewer who's very based on, economic and geopolitical issues now. So go check out those interviews if you haven't yet, but we're coming at you with another stream tonight. Some of you know that every once in a while I like to go down a conspiracy rabbit hole. I don't believe all the conspiracies, obviously. I think the flat earth stuff is ridiculous. I haven't looked too deep into the moon landing or anything like that, but every once in a while, just in the course of my regular research, I'll come across something that really grabs my attention. And immediately I'm like, I think this is real. I think there's something to this. And I'll look deeper into it. And last night that happened with Erika Kirk. Up until now, I had been very weirded out by Erika Kirk. The vibes are just off. I think Carlos and I are both in long-term relationships where we rely on our partner. If our significant other died, we would be pretty destroyed emotionally for a long time. We would continue with our work as soon as we could, but it would be hard. And to watch Erika Kirk go out there knowing that her husband just got shot in the neck and having these fireworks shows and the fake tears and smiling about becoming the new CEO of TPUSA, it's fucking weird, dude. It's weird. I've had even people who aren't invested in politics be like, what is going on here? But I hadn't looked too deeply into it until I saw a comedian. I can't think of his name, like Sammy Obeid or something. Obeida. He's a pro-Palestinian comedian. He was talking about Erika Kirk's connections to Romania and an orphanage in Romania. And I thought, I've never heard about that. That's very, very weird. And then coincidentally, I was looking into this Romanian orphanage last night, and then this morning, Candace Owens must have stumbled upon this story as well, and released a bunch of documents exposing it. So perfect timing, really there. But it's not just about Erika Kirk, right? I'm not gonna come at you like 2001 Alex Jones. Or maybe he's a bad example. David Icke, whatever that guy who thinks the lizard people run the world. I'm not going to be like, Erika Kirk's parents were Israeli spies and they sent her to honeypot Charlie Kirk and it was this big operation. It's not like that. But there are some weird, weird connections and history behind Erika Kirk and her parents and this Romanian orphanage that she started running at the age of 17. And I don't think Erika Kirk is Satan, like she's the one masterminding this. I think she's a puppet because her parents were born into the ruling class and the defense industry and these sick networks. And I think she belongs to those networks, and they basically use her as a pawn. This, somewhat attractive, I guess. I don't, I don't know. Everyone keeps calling her an attractive woman. She looks fucking scary to me. She looks like a demon, to be honest. But anyways, they use her as like this attractive face to push certain political agendas and narratives. And she's deeply intertwined with these dark, dark networks of people who run the world. And also, it fits in because it's Romania. And what we're going to talk about today connects to all sorts of NATO-backed and covered-up sex trafficking rings in East Europe, including the Balkans, which I just wrote an article about for Red America, which you can check out on the ACP website. So very relevant for me to be studying this right now, I guess. I just kind of fell into it when I was watching conspiracy YouTube videos last night and then woke up this morning and decided to do real intensive hard research. But yeah, I'm going to share with you guys what I learned, and it's going to creep you out. It was sending chills down my spine for sure today and last night learning about this shit. So
I'm looking forward to hearing it as well. I haven't gone down that rabbit hole. But by the way, before we say anything, legally, we're not claiming anything.
right.
We're just speculating. We don't want to get sued. We're just speculating, right? But from day one, I've been telling Eddie and my wife, I'm like, I think that she was probably an asset. Because the closest person who would have been able to know where Charlie Kirk was at and make sure that he fell in line with the powers that be would have been his wife. And historically, Mossad, as well as most intelligence services, have always used women to get to powerful men and relationships. One of the, is it Mahmoud Darwish, one of the famous Palestinian writers, he ended up finding out that his partner was a Mossad agent, and his famous, there's a poem that he writes about it. The last line was like, "It was as if my homeland was once again occupied." It's a beautiful poem because it's this tension of this woman that he loves, and she ends up being an agent. So that's where my head went from day fucking one. I swear to God, that's where my mind went. As soon as I saw Jackson pulling out all the receipts of Kirk turning on Israel towards the end, or at least seemingly. So yeah, I'm very, very interested to hear what Eddie has cooked up, and hopefully we could also talk a little bit about ICE, which I think is intensifying, heightening the contradictions, as we like to say with our fancy tuxedos. Instead of it's getting rough, we say heightening the contradictions with a champagne glass. In the country, you know, as Eddie has framed it perfectly, I think in other commentaries, which is that it's a battle over who's going to control what different armed bodies of the state. And I think this is the prelude potentially to the Civil War. So we're going to have a great conversation today, a great program for you all. So make sure to like, make sure to share it, and yeah, stick around.
High Sheriff Hazard is a hard man to be. High Sheriff is his only plan. He digs through pockets, takes what he can, for he's High Sheriff Hazard. He caught me one evening, and here's what he said: "You look like a Russian, you look like a red, and if you're fond of your skin and your head, beware the High Sheriff of Hazard."
All right, that was hilarious. Carlos and I typed in the chat at the same time about Flame of Gibberation. But I see someone saying, look up these two, nobody's talking about it. I definitely will. I love a good conspiracy. I think the first one that I looked into that's not even a conspiracy was the Epic Times and the Falun Gong, where I realized that anti-communist Chinese cult was spending like billions of dollars or millions of dollars at least in the American media to influence narratives and things like that. So I did an expose on that. The next one was probably the Jim Jones cult, which I believe was an extension of the CIA's MK Ultra that was intended to mine rare earth minerals in Guyana. Through basically brainwashing and drugging people, like what was going on at the People's Temple. And then when they were going to get exposed, I think they unalived everyone. Again, allegedly, speculation. This is my opinion. We're not saying any of this is fact. And then the other one was after I read Chaos
Mhm.
by Tom O'Neill, which that blows the lid off of so many conspiracies and things that happened in the 70s. It starts with the Manson murders and it goes through JFK and all this, because of course it's all intertwined. That's what Tom O'Neill finds by doing rigorous research on CIA programs in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, is that everything's interconnected. Because of course it is. You know, it's the same powers that be, the same ruling class that's fomenting all of this stuff, like Project MK Ultra, Project or Operation Condor in the southern cone of Latin America. So when we talk about conspiracies, it's not like there's the Illuminati who's running everything and it's just three guys and they're actually lizards and they control everything that you see and they're, you know, from another planet. It's not like that. It's conspiracy as in JFK was trying to abolish the CIA, so they had a material interest to take him out. And if you look at the evidence in the Warren report, all of it points in the direction that that's what happened, that the CIA and the Mossad and intelligence agencies who represent the ruling economic class took him out because he was challenging their interests and looking to weaken the U.S. empire and regain or reassert some sort of democratic control over the deep state. So when we talk about conspiracies, it's from a structural Marxist-Leninist perspective, and a lot of it is speculation, because without a full-on government investigation into this orphanage in Romania that we're going to talk about, there's no way to know all the facts. And that's part of what's going on here, is they're covering it up because the Romanian police basically have no authority over NATO, who occupies their country like a neo-colony ever since the Soviet Union fell. So all of this is conspiratorial, but it fits into a Marxist-Leninist framework and structural analysis. And I just want people to know that before we dive deep.
Yeah, if I can say something about that, because you get to some of these old heads and very vulgar, quote unquote, Marxists, and they're against this sort of stuff. They're like, no, we just have to be talking about the basics, the capitalist class and their interests versus our interests. And it's like, bro, people grow indignant when they see these events that function like as like overdetermined contradictions. You know, they get, it's almost like for a lot of these events, it's like the straws that break camels' backs for a lot of people. And do you want them to go down like certain rabbit holes that don't connect it to the system? Or do you want to be the guy that says, yes, there are conspiracies, but why are there conspiracies? There are conspiracies because this class doesn't even have to conspire in terms of coming from completely separate areas together. Like, they already know they're in the same group. They already know they're in the big club that George Carlin was talking about. And so they know that when someone's fucking with their shit, when someone's fucking with either their money or their capacity to make money or their power internationally or something of that nature, they're naturally going to create committees and groups and plans to fix the problem. And every single conspiracy, quote unquote conspiracy, that's the core of it. It's like something is challenging the ruling order, and so they carry out a plan to execute it, and they try to be as covert as they possibly can to not get caught, and people start tying two and two together. And are you going to let that task just be done by, I don't know, people like Candace Owens, which, okay, it's good, or are you going to outline the material systemic reasons for why these events have to occur? Because it's one thing telling you, okay, here's a conspiracy. Okay, cool. But why was there a need for a conspiracy in the first place? What sort of system makes it necessary to constantly have this covert mechanism where the ruling elite does things that outrage the public, and then people have to begin to tie two and two together in the aftermath of it?
Yeah. I have a video I want to play of George Carlin here before we jump into the evidence and explain what's going on here. But my mom, who's watching the program tonight because she's been
That Obama
invested.
Smith.
Yeah, she's been very invested in what's been going on in the country lately. And she started out with watching Candace, and she likes Candace. You know, Candace is a mother and a Christian, which are also the most important things to my mom. So it overlaps there. But, you know, after a while, she started to get a little bit disillusioned, where it was like Candace is just an individual and a journalist who's trying to get views, of course. She's doing a good job, and I support what she's doing.
Yeah.
But every week it's like, the truth is all going to come out next week. We're going to get all the answers next week. And it kind of leaves you on a cliffhanger. And my mom's like, and then all the answers never came. And now she's kind of moving on, reading Michael Hudson, getting more of a structural, nuanced, balanced analysis from people like us. And yeah, when it comes to independent journalists like Candace, they can be an asset, they can be an ally, they can spread good information and change the American consciousness in a good way. But they have their shortcomings and their limitations ideologically, and just because they're journalists and individuals who aren't attached to any kind of collective that can actually bring about political change. They're just connected to their audiences, this amorphous thing that you speak to through a camera. So yeah, now there's a lot of people like that, I think, who are into the conspiracies, but now they're going to be looking for something a little bit deeper, a more rooted, more balanced analysis, like what we have. Even though it's a radical analysis that we have, we're still balanced, more so than some of these sensationalist journalists. And I think a lot of people are like that. I think a lot of people are going to be looking for content like ours soon. But yeah, anyways. Oh, we got a super chat too. I'll cover this. Thank you, comrade. I don't know how anyone can support Saddam. He was an American student. Obviously, we are against the overthrow of Saddam. But yeah, Saddam like gassed Iranians. It was like put in power by the CIA. To be like the guy we were talking about earlier was like, I'm a Saddamist. I'm a Ba'athist socialist. We need to follow Saddam's leadership. Like, no, no. Iraq got worse after he was overthrown. He was better than ISIS and all the groups that followed. But he's not the sixth head of Marxism or anything. But anyways, here's George Carlin on conspiracies, because Carlos brought up Carlin. I didn't even have this planned to play today, but I think we should watch it before we dive in.
The energy policies that were created here in California, not as a result of a conspiracy, but because...
You don't need a formal conspiracy.
Right.
When interests converge, these people went to the same universities and fraternities, they're on the same boards of directors, they're in the same country clubs, they have like interests, they don't need to call a meeting, they know what's good for them, and they're getting it. And there used to be 7 oil companies, there are now 3, it will soon be 2. The things that matter in this country have been reduced in choice. There are 2 political parties. There are a handful of insurance companies. There are about 6 or 7 information things. But if you want a bagel, there are 23 flavors, because you have the illusion. You have the illusion of choice.
Right.
You don't get the real important choice. There's no freedom of choice.
That's a great point. Right. And speaking of...
You know what's crazy about that, Eddie? That black guy next to him would sound so out of touch and delusional today.
Mm-hmm.
That's how things have developed. Everyone is like kind of in the know. Everyone accepts Carlin's premises. There's no one right, left, all across the political spectrum. No one would actually. The people would laugh at what that guy said.
Yep, you can't do that anymore. You can't mock somebody for saying, powerful interests, control politics or media or choice in this country. Everybody knows that now. Everybody knows that what George Carlin said was true. So yeah, very, very interesting. He had a lot of gems. Like to say the illusion of choice, being able to choose your cereal at the grocery store. That's so correct. That's whereas all the important choices are already made for you.
That's why one of the ideas I've been trying to develop, in the last year or so, I used to think that the system had like its regular hegemony, its like ruling ideas, and then like these fake counter-hegemonic or dissident ideas that it needed in order to like have like a pressure valve, a controlled opposition to the ruling order. But now that's not even the case, because no one wants to accept that they are the ruling order. No one wants to accept that they're the establishment. To put it in jargony terms, no one wants to accept that they're the hegemony. The Republicans, whether they're in power or not, always point at the liberals and the wokes. The liberals always point at Trump and the Republicans. The leftists point at both. And it's like no one wants to ever take accountability or responsibility for the state of affairs being the way that they are.
You know who the only people left that'll defend the establishment like that are literal Wall Street shareholders and executives.
Yeah.
Like that guy who was getting interviewed during Zoran's campaign and was like, if he wins, people like me are going to leave. And the interviewer's like, fucking good. Nobody wants you here. Those are the only people who are still like, we're the establishment and that's a good thing and we belong here. It makes sense because those are the real people who run the country, is those shareholders and owners of banks. The politicians are puppets. Who are they puppets of? The private sector, the capitalist class. It's been that way for a long time. The landowning class.
That's precisely why that guy from the Carlin video, he's a dead species. You know, he's been extinct because today his
they have
form
smarter propaganda now.
Way smarter. It'd be like, yes, there's an elite, there's a conspiracy, but it's X group. And they divert it from the system.
Yep. Thank you, Mark, for the $5 super chat and for being a YouTube member. I love this comment here. I see it like this. Marxism, Leninism gives a foundation and all the others fall apart for lack of one. It's so true. So true. Over time, if you don't have that foundation, you're going to go astray. And if you do, it can help you find the truth every time. All right. Should we start talking about Erika Kirk?
Let's do it.
So Erika Kirk, there's very little known about her parents. Her father is basically a ghost. But what we do know is that he worked for a private tech company that was subcontracted with both Raytheon and the Department of Defense. So her father worked for A to Z Tech and was connected to the military-industrial complex through that. Her mother, there's a lot more known about her mom, although not much. She was a successful and powerful entrepreneur in the tech and security industry, which, of course, is more deeply intertwined with the Department of Defense and the U.S. military and the military-industrial complex than pretty much any other industry besides weapons. It's weapons, tech, and security, especially nowadays with this technological era of warfare that we're in, and organizations like Palantir. That's the kind of people who her mom worked around, but there's very, very little that's known about these guys. But we know that Erika was also close to not only the tech and security industry, which is like the offensive war industry, as well as U.S. intelligence, because of this commercial that recently surfaced of her advertising some kind of tech, probably to the CIA or the DOD or whoever, because that's how this works. For those who don't know, these tech companies, these weapons manufacturers, these security companies sell their shit to the U.S. government. And almost all of their profits come from your taxes or money that the U.S. government printed or money that they charged people in third world countries for on rents and debts and things like that. And that's what's used to prop up Raytheon, Boeing, all these weapons manufacturing companies. They profit off war and they profit off the U.S. government. So here, this was originally called the CIA video, but it wasn't from the CIA itself. It was some tech company promoting themselves through a documentary, and she appeared next to the director of the CIA in the video. So it's not the CIA itself, it's some CIA-connected tech and security company, which was the very business and industry that her parents worked in.
Make our grid extremely vulnerable that we've presented to congressional officials. 1 being cyber, 2 being hackers, 3 being physical threats, 4th one is solar EMP, and the 5th one is man-made EMP. So
ask yourself, what does Erika Kirk know about tech and security? Do you think she's a tech mastermind? Or do you think her mom got her this job because she works in the industry and she was powerful and connected, even though we can't find anything about her on Wikipedia?
Eddie, you sound like Kanye when he was like, I like Gaga, but what does Gaga know about Polaroid?
Facts. It's true.
Is that we put out this critical information, and when we go over this risk analysis, they hear what we're saying, but they don't want to take action.
Well, there are 18 critical infrastructures in the United States: food, water, transportation, communications, etc. All 17 of the others depend on electricity.
If our grid goes down, you can't cook, you're not going to heat anything, you can't run any of your medical supplies, you can't talk on your phone.
So basically, they're just scaring people in order to sell more tech and security equipment is the whole deal there. But the point of that is to show Erika Kirk and her family's connections, the industry that they worked in. There are some people who are like getting reckless with their claims, and they're like, both of her parents were Israeli spies. There's no proof for that, but they did work very closely with organizations who fund and arm Israel and work together with Israeli spies. That is true. Now, I need to give you guys a little bit of background information on Mikhail Kojenisihushushu. I don't know how it's pronounced. It's this Romanian airbase. I'll pull up a picture here. Oh, maybe I didn't save a picture of the airbase, but it's this giant NATO airbase in Romania that has 10,000 people there and stationed there, NATO troops, and it's projected to be the largest NATO base in all of Europe, even bigger than any that they have in West Europe, by the year 2030, which, this is all the legacy of the Soviet Union's collapse. NATO came in, not only robbed these countries' economies, but they also basically set up military forces to manage them like neo-colonies. And what the people in this region have noticed is a repeated pattern of sexual abuse crimes, sexual trafficking in and out of this base that constantly gets covered up because the Romanian authorities don't have the ability to actually punish or prosecute NATO. Think about it. It's basically a colony. Would the Vietnamese have been able to prosecute their French colonizers, the French colonial administration? Of course not. They had no power. So what's going on is the U.S. is running these countries like old-fashioned colonies, and then because the NATO higher-ups are free to do whatever they want, they're engaging in prostitution and sometimes child trafficking.
That makes the Ceausescu cheating. It adds so much context to it because his whole thing was being anti-NATO.
Mm-hmm. And if you read the stuff that Romanians are saying about this, they're like, this is capitalism. All right, this goes to show how capitalism and paganism are intertwined. So it's very interesting. But anyways, at first I'd asked ChatGPT, and it said there's no evidence that there was sex trafficking going on at this Romanian Air Force base. None. And then I said, can you look not through American mainstream sources, but Romanian sources? And it gave me like 100 of them. Basically, all the people in this Romanian region where the Air Force base is hate it and know that this is going on and feel that it's being covered up. And it's been reported extensively in Ukrainian media, although you'll be told that that's a conspiracy theory if you bring it up to a Western journalist or in Western sources. But here's an article from Ukrainian media. Romanian news reports on the American military colonel Otto Busher III and his alleged brothel, which included minors. Busher III was associated with Erika Kirk's Romanian Angels program.
Oh,
so remember this name, Otto Busher III. This is the guy who was, according to the leaked documents and the whistleblower who blew the whistle on all of this, the one who was running this brothel. He was the guy making sure that prostitutes and young children would go in and out and that nobody would figure it out. So here's where the base is. See that little red dot there? That's where the base is located. Erika Kirk's orphanage was located in the exact same place, right in the same region next to this Air Force base. It's going to get worse than that, too. Let me pull up. Do you have anything to say so far, Carlos? I'm going to pull up a different article first.
No, this is just astonishing.
Mm-hmm.
I had, as I said at the beginning, a gut feeling that there was something very off about her, but you start to dig into the meat and potatoes of the background, and it's disgusting. And I think these are contradictions that we have to utilize, because this hits people at a level of their stomach, at a level of moral disgust and outrage that actually does, I think, motivate them to act and at some point say, well, enough is enough. I remember this quote, I haven't said it in a while, but I think we've both been saying it when we started the Institute, from Daniel De Leon, that for Marxists, like the base, Marxism is like a ship. The base is the science, the scientific components, and the sails are morality. Like the moral outrage of a people is what moves the ship. But if you don't have the foundation, you're cooked. You need both. And I think events like this that show the degeneracy of our elite, and I know there's people who don't like that word, fuck those people. Elite are degenerate.
This is degeneracy.
Yeah, it's pure degeneracy, and it's a reflection of the degeneracy of the system itself. That's the Marxist position, not this liberal shit. Oh no, degeneracy sounds like a right-wing term. Fuck that. Those are contradictions that have to be brought to the fore, because that's what hits people in their stomach, in their moral conscience.
Exactly. That's why I'm covering it, because that's where it hit me, even as a, someone who's been a Marxist-Leninist for however many years now. You see something like this, it affects you emotionally. I work with children full time. I would bring great harm to anyone who wanted to bring great harm to them. So reading about this stuff gets you in the gut for sure. But I promise you guys, it gets so much worse. I haven't even gotten to the juicy stuff yet. We're just going through the base, which, by the way, there's a network of this stuff all across East Europe. I'm not going to get into it today, but the same thing is going on in the Balkans, especially Bosnia has been a hub for NATO X-trafficking. So this is repeated. And there are structural reasons for it too. But anyways, documents the brothel at the American military base. So essentially a translator, a good, honest Romanian woman, opened her email one day and saw that she had the evidence of all of this X trafficking. And she had also noticed young girls being brought in and out without them being registered on the guest registry. Young girls, minors, and some adult prostitutes as well, being taken in and out. So this translator decides to blow the whistle and say, report this X trafficking to the Romanian authorities. What the police tell her is, oh, we can't prosecute NATO. We can't do anything with NATO, so just drop it. So the translator went back, got screenshots of all the evidence, brought it to the Romanian police, who then finally started an investigation. But they closed it immediately because they said the prostitutes weren't listed on the guest registry, so it was impossible that they ever could have been to the NATO base. As if the people who are X-trafficking minors would write their names on the guest registry. So a complete cover-up. NATO clearly put the kibosh on the Romanian authorities looking any deeper into this. But anyways, here is Otto Buscher III. I have proof that he exists because some Western sources claim that he doesn't exist. I have tons of alternative sources to show you proving that he does, in fact, exist. And this was his partner in crime, Lloyd Sparks. These were the two guys who were really running this X-trafficking operation. So here are the documents proving that there was an investigation, which a lot of Western sources claim there was no investigation. It talks about the evidence here. It's all in Romanian, and some of the other documents are in English, so we'll look at those. But this debunks the Western narrative that there was no investigation whatsoever. But then that same Romanian news outlet published a part 2. You can pull it up here. And they said they were going to publish a part 3, but it never came out. So who knows what happened there. Let me translate it to English for you quick. So in part 1, they talked about the investigation. In part 2, they showed the woman's documents, the documents that were captured by this whistleblower working as a translator at the NATO base. Right here. I'm going to skip that for now. But she also uploaded them on YouTube, which is now age restricted. But here is her showing financial transactions where high up NATO officials are openly buying and selling children and prostitutes, and arranging the purchase and sale. It's all recorded in this NATO Excel spreadsheet that she had access to because she was a translator at the base. So that's on YouTube. Of course, they age restricted it, so as few people as possible can see it. But here, these are all written in English as well as Romanian. I am not near Constantanta right now. I sent a message to you yesterday about this. You did not answer. I may be available to see you tomorrow afternoon and evening. I made you an offer that you live in my house or another house, and I give you 1,000 RON a week, or I give you 250 each time I see you. Choose one, please. Sorry, someone's calling me. So openly talking about buying and selling people. And the more I learn about this and hear about how they traffic women mainly from East Europe, because that seems to be the source of a lot of the minors and the people they traffic, the more I think that maybe Melania Trump is like a mail order bride that Trump purchased through like these Jeffrey Epstein networks. because like I said, it's all up in the Balkans and Eastern Europe and Romania and these former Soviet countries that were pillaged by the West after the fall of the Soviet Union. So, and that's, obviously Melania's background. So, when can I see your apartment? I want to see. I propose to you Saturday from 9 to 7. I will provide $100 or whatever and meet you Monday, Thursday at my house, $300 per day. So all of these documents that show financial exchanges where people are buying and selling people, and they closed the investigation right away because the names of the people being bought and sold weren't on the guest registry. So just think about how ridiculous that is. The fact that this lady had to publish this publicly because there could be no investigation because their country is colonized by NATO. And then in the Western press, it doesn't get any play. It gets dismissed as a conspiracy theory when all the documents are right here. Not only that, this is where it starts to get real crazy. One of the NATO higher-ups threatened to run her over with his car if she continued to investigate this and continued to press and try to get them held accountable for their crimes. And after the guy threatened to kill her, he called the guy back the next day and recorded the conversation and got him to admit that he threatened to kill her. So here's that audio right here. Again, none of this evidence has been released in the Western media at all. And they just say nothing to see here. It's all a conspiracy, even though NATO officers were caught on video threatening to kill people for investigating their sex crimes. It's not good audio, but.
I couldn't understand exactly what you were saying, but I couldn't part of what you said. And associating them, I don't think that you were saying something else. So I want to ask you, what were you saying to me? I just heard shots and I'll run you over. Oh, last night when I was trying to... Yes, last night. I couldn't understand you very well. So I wanted to make sure that what you said was not, what were you saying? I said you need to have reflective. You need to be more reflective or you're going to get run over. More reflective meaning what? Reflection. People wear bikes or they walk, your coat is dark. So you weren't preying on me? You weren't threatening me? No? Okay. So you were just concerned about me? More of a joke. More of a joke? Do you do that kind of joke? So I thought I heard it up there, and I did.
So a NATO higher up admits to threatening to run her over with his car for investigating his sex crimes, and she got it on video. And we have access to the video. This isn't being talked about at all in the West, and it's being covered up. So that's one of the craziest parts. If you think this woman's lying, I don't know what to tell you. She published the document. She published a phone call with a NATO higher up threatening to run her over with his car for publishing these documents. So it's very clear that there should have been a full investigation, but it was squashed because of the colonial dynamics there. What are the Romanian police going to do to NATO? So, yeah, what's your reaction so far, Carlos?
No, it's absolutely disgusting. And I think it's very important to remember, like, this is what happened when socialism fell. Did these areas have contradictions? Yeah. Were they the perfect, most beautiful socialism? No. Were they like China's socialism today? No. But look at what fucking the alternative was. You thought they were going to be a nice little Scandinavian capitalist country? Fuck you. No, it's either you're a colony and we get to do whatever the fuck we want with you, whether it's traffic kids or take your oil or take your raw materials, or you're socialist and you might have some contradictions internally. Of course, that's expected, but you defend your sovereignty and you have sovereignty. And if you want to prosecute a bunch of degenerates, you actually fucking can. So this is what people, I think, need to keep in mind. Like, what's at stake always on the question of socialism is not just a system and like capitalism and how do you feel about private property and enterprise. And no, bro, it's fucking sovereignty. Are you going to be able to have the ability to prosecute people like this, degenerates like this, or of any other kind, people who contaminate areas with their enterprises that end up killing people, affecting their health? Are you able to prosecute people like that? You could do that when you have sovereignty. You can't when you don't. When your country is a neo-colony of the West, of NATO, of the United States, that's the only two options that a country has. Either you're the friends of the imperial hegemon, or you're the slave. Or the third one would be, or you're a based fucking country like DPRK or China or Venezuela or Russia or something like that, that actually says no and has sovereignty.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought that was because it's like, of course this is going to happen. If people are above the law, and they're like these deranged imperialist managers, these NATO officials and NATO troops, of course they're going to engage in the worst kinds of debauchery because there's no one to hold them accountable while they're in a foreign country. So yeah. Anyways, almost done with this, but basically this became a big thing known as the Caracol-Diveselu file in Romania. Caracol is the region where not only this military base was, but also Erika Kirk's orphanage. And then Erika Kirk's orphanage shut down shortly after, just very quietly went away a year or two after all of this was exposed, and that lady came forward, the whistleblower, in 2015. But then 4 years later, in 2019, there were two young women who were murdered. And one woman had called the police like 10 times and had told them that she was under attack, and the police ignored her for 18 hours. And by the time the Romanian police actually showed up, she was already dead. And what the locals believe, and lots of investigative journalists believe, is that this wasn't an isolated incident. It was attached to the sex trafficking ring, and maybe these girls were going to tell the truth. They were going to blow the whistle or something like that. So they were unalived. So you have this whistleblower coming out, and you have this high-profile case where two young girls are murdered right outside the base within the span of 4 years. So the locals at this point hate NATO and this NATO base, and they see it as, not only an extension of Western capitalism, but an extension of Western degeneracy. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the main event. Erika Kirk's orphanage that she started at the age of 17 in conjunction with the U.S. Marine Corps, which, of course, that was done for her by her parents. No 17-year-old is starting charities in Romania in connection with the U.S. Marine Corps. It was her parents who work in tech and security who got her this opportunity. And this is what I mean by her just being a pawn of the system, being someone who's used since she was very young by her wealthy and powerful parents. So Erika Kirk starts this charity at the age of 17. And, I'm just going to play for you the promotional content that is still up on their Vimeo page to this day. I recommend people save this because as this story gets bigger, this video is certainly going to be taken down by Erika Kirk and her handlers. Right now, it only has 20,000 views. So you're about to see some crazy shit that not a lot of people have seen. Check this out.
Boost the stream right now.
Boost it.
In order.
I believe that we all have angels in our lives. And these are my little angels.
Also, everyone who worked at the orphanage said that Erika Kirk didn't ever help. She would show up for photo ops every once in a while. And that was it.
Antonio Placement Center in Constanța, Romania. Our goal with the Romanian Angels Project was to show these children the true American heart during the holiday season. And what better way to do that than having our United States military personally deliver the gifts?
What better way to show children the true American heart than to have these guys from the military base accused of pedophilia repeatedly, that's hated by the locals for trafficking minors? Let's have them come to an orphanage and hang out with the kids. What a great way to show them the American heart. Holy shit. What? And her voice is so creepy too. Like, why was this filmed with a toaster? bear with me for a second. It's all about to come together. There's just a kid being stuffed in a bag in the background. Sorry.
I'm waiting for Epstein to pop out.
Just wait. He basically does.
All 75 children had a present to open that day. Sometimes the greatest charity comes from the most simple forms of kindness. It doesn't matter where you came from or what your weaknesses are or your strengths. What matters is that you cared enough to change a child's life with a moment in time that they wish could last forever.
Thank you. Colonel Busher III. Colonel Otto Busher, mentioned by name. The man who was running the pedophile ring is the one she mentions by name in her orphanage that was run in the exact same area as the military pedophile ring. This orphanage that was launched in conjunction with the U.S. military is bringing in sex traffickers, the people who head up sex trafficking rings, to meet children from this orphanage. I mean, like I said, I don't have concrete proof, but what the fuck? What the fuck? At a time when the U.S. media is telling us that this Otto Busher III doesn't even exist. There are outlets claiming that he was not a real person, according to military records. We checked. Clearly he does. He exists in Erika Kirk's creepy-ass orphanage with this demon music playing in the background. So this is what gave me goosebumps and chills when I saw this. When I saw Otto Busher III, because it is him. We've also exposed Danny. Danny Shaw was also there. Oh, man.
Bro, this is so scary. I mean, the scariest part of it, it's like knowing how Mossad operates with technology. I just really hope they don't blow up like Eddie's phone while he's sleeping.
Dude, I'm like, if we stream this, I'm dead. Specifically.
That's why he's like, you have to be there. We're dying together.
We're going down together. God, that's so funny. Yeah, what do you think, Carlos? What do you make of it?
Honestly, I'm not surprised. Like the way that these people are able to guarantee, because the ruling class is such snakes. No one there has actual values or principles or anything that they stand on business on. There's no humanity there. Like, and the way that they're able to sustain the loyalty of other people is through blackmail. Through, I mean, to be included in the big club, you have to be included also in the dark rooms of that big club, just so that they know. It's kind of like the rituals that drug dealers do with new members of the organization to prove they're not cops or something. Like, you have to take the hit, or you have to. It's like initiation rituals, so that they'll always have dirt on you, and there's something fundamentally at stake that you lose if you ever try to come out and say things as a whistleblower, or to leave or something like that. It's how they operate, and we can't be surprised when we see stuff like this. It's just it's always still disgusting when you look at the details and you see it play out. So I'm in awe. I had no idea of any of this, but it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, the story about the teenage whistleblowers in 2019 who tried to come forward but were killed is crazy in and of itself. Like I said, police didn't respond for 18 hours. And one of the girls was saying, "Please stay with me," on the phone. And the police were like, "No, you're fine." And let them be killed. And then in the media, it was treated like an isolated incident, when it was probably connected to this ring. And they were probably, these girls were almost surely killed in order to protect the identities of the pedophiles running this ring. So that's your government. That's what you're funding to spread around the world. That's what people who support the collapse of the Soviet Union are supporting in practice. There's a NATO sex trafficking base in Romania with connections to Bosnia. Like our buddy James Ray, who always backs the dissolution of Yugoslavia. That's what you're supporting, their country being torn apart and turned into a NATO sex trafficking ring. So congrats, I guess.
It's interesting because there's so much focus on Epstein. When any of this is discussed, it makes you think, like, by focusing on Epstein, how many other dozens of Epsteins are not talked about?
Right. And when I was researching this, I'm like, okay, so this is really widespread. Like, I could do another episode at some point talking about all these NATO rings that are run in the Balkans and other parts of East Europe. And like when we talk about Epstein, we give it such almost like it's all of our analysis is moral, almost like this is disgusting. Yeah. We'll tie it to capitalism and be like, this is the degeneracy capitalism promotes, but it's disgusting and shows how depraved the ruling class is, which is true. But if there's a steady demand for that kind of stuff within the ruling class, which we now know there is, there's a lot of money to be made there. And you just have the regular economic incentive of people to be Jeffrey Epstein. He probably made so much money because rich and powerful people are probably willing to pay so much for this, that there's just a basic economic incentive there to make money by trafficking kids. And that's how a lot of people probably get involved in these rings, and why they do them and why they stay quiet, not only because they're worried about getting killed, but they're profiting off of it. Which is like, you don't think that child trafficking could be such a big market with such a big demand that anyone could make serious money off it or be like a small business owner for trafficking, but that's what these fucking people are doing. They're making bank by trafficking kids. And
we have our mom and pop shop trafficking rings.
Right. Yeah. Every time NATO sets up a new base, they get small business loans.
And they probably justify it, like they have to justify it to themselves at some point. And it's probably like the Zionist, well, if I don't traffic them, someone else will, and might as well have that money in my bank account instead of someone else having it.
If I don't steal it, someone else will. No, nobody is allowed to steal it.
If I don't steal Venezuela's oil, someone else will.
So that's all I got. Hopefully that was good. Also, that same base was caught being a CIA torture site, which is widely exposed. So, yeah, I just think it's interesting too with the overlap of the fall of the Soviet Union. Just like you said, this is what capitalism brought to those countries. The worst shit imaginable.
Damn. Now I really hope. I'd like to see you write a report on some of the stuff you brought out in this stream, because putting it in writing would be really nice, and I don't think anyone has done that. Maybe some people might try now that Candace is doing an episode. But
there was one guy who did a really good Substack, but he doesn't have our audience. And shout out to that guy. I used a lot of his research, but
yeah, it'd be good. It'd be good to do it. I publish a lot in Lebanon with Amayadin. This would be like perfect for them.
Oh, hell yeah, I'll do it. I'll do a short article. Sweet. Should we move to ICE?
Let's do it.
I'm gonna run.
I can probably introduce this topic if you want.
Yeah.
I have always been cautious when it comes to the immigration issue, for the following reason. I am not libtard that has acted like, Biden and Obama have been qualitatively different from Trump in terms of deportations. I know that Obama was called the deporter in chief for a reason, and he deported almost twice as many people as Trump. And the rate at which Trump was deporting people, at least at the beginning, the first few months of his administration, was still like half the rate at which Joe Biden did it. But something happens when I'm trying to teach a class in my university setting, and like half of my students are like brown foreigners, and the other half are like black, and it feels like every new class period, my students come up and tell me like, "Hey, I got harassed by ICE," and it started this semester specifically. A bunch of students telling me, "I got harassed by ICE. I got harassed by ICE," and it crosses class lines. There's students that I've had, which had family members that owned car dealerships, and they were driving very fancy cars, and they just got stopped because they were brown. They looked like they weren't from here. And other students who drive like an old Altima or something and get stopped for God knows what reason. And I thought, well, maybe it's just like people who look brown. And then you see what's happening in Minneapolis, and the killing of this 37-year-old mom. It's like, wow, that's when masked men that are an extra constitutional armed body, extremely unpopular by the population, for the population, when they start to kill white women in America, something's about to pop off. If, in case you don't know, because we have foreign listeners, few subjects are considered in higher regards in America than the white woman. The white woman mother. Shout out Eddie Mom. I'm Bobby Mom. When those sectors of society are targeted in the way this lady was, and she's not the only one, you're just dealing with almost like a Gestapo-like entity on your hands. And yes, Biden was deporting probably more people than Trump still, but the form in which it's taking with Trump, with ICE, and the sheer brutality of it, the openness, but also it's a weird openness because it's open in your face, but also it's masked people. And I'm sorry, but to just put it as a man, if you can't do your job without a mask, you're a pussy. It's a job that belongs to pussies. So historically, the only organization that I know of in U.S. history that would go around with masks and weapons terrorizing people like this was the fucking Klan. So I think that I'd like to hear your thoughts, Eddie, because you're in a different part of the country. It's more predominantly white. People probably have a different opinion on immigration and stuff than what I see around me. But it seems like this is the sort of thing that even if you're against immigration, because our position is relatively conservative when it comes to immigration, you have to be completely outraged by the killing of this lady and the way that ICE is working around the country.
Yeah, I haven't heard anyone supporting it, even in Iowa. And I've heard a lot of people who are disgusted by it. I haven't talked to enough regular people about it yet. I want to reach out to some of my conservative friends just for their take, but yeah, it's and maybe that shows a tinge of racism, the fact that it's different when it's a white woman. But in terms of ICE, what I've always said, I've maintained this from the beginning, because the deportation rates have yet to go up. They're still lower than they were under Biden. And part of that is because less people are coming in because of Trump's "don't come here" rhetoric, which makes sense. But what I see ICE as, especially with America heading towards potential civil war, is a private army for Trump. They're ideologically loyal to Trump. The Trump administration already moved to privatize ICE, which would give them even more absolute control over it. They have more direct control already over ICE than they do over the military, and they can use ICE and mobilize them against the domestic population. So I think if there's a civil war, ICE will be deeply involved in it. They'll be one of the forces fighting for Trump, and I think well beyond immigration, I think the ICE is going to be the armed body of the state that targets communists and targets dissidents and targets anybody who challenges state power, whether that be the Democratic Party or otherwise. And now you have Tim Walz calling for the National Guard to be mobilized and for ICE to get out. And during the LA protest, you had Gavin Newsom and Trump arguing on Twitter over who has command over the National Guard. So this is the armed bodies of the state clashing. This is the armed bodies of the state being divided into different sides. And this is the politicians, the ruling elite, fighting each other over control of those armed bodies of the state. And if everything were to break down in a civil war scenario, those ICE guys would absolutely be loyal to Trump. They're like the petty bourgeois and lumpen cultist elements of his base, not the regular farmer who voted for Obama twice and then Trump, or the welder who voted for Trump because his job got outsourced under Obama. These aren't those people. They're the gangsters or the people who, got kicked out of the police force for being abusive and went to ICE instead. And the people with too much time on their hands because they're like wealthy middle-class business owner types who support Trump. So that's what this is, in my opinion. I mean, obviously immigrants are being targeted more than anybody else, but I think ICE, there's reasons that we should be against it structurally, that go way far beyond the immigration point even.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And this is the importance of understanding how it is that the contradictions are heightening within the ruling class itself. And people tend to think that the ruling class is this homogenous body, especially when they have a very low-level analysis of Marxism. But one of the things that Lenin considers to be indispensable for a revolution is that the ruling class can no longer rule in the old way anymore. Not just that the people can't keep going on in the old way, but the ruling class itself cannot keep going on in the old way. And that there's various ways that could look. There's various forms that could take. Either they can't go on in the old way because if you're an empire, you can't keep getting away with what you did internationally, or they can't keep going on in the old way because internally the ruling class is too divided across different lines for different reasons. And those political overdetermining contradictions are very important, and Marxists have always recognized that they have a very important role in revolutionary struggles and the collapse of systems. So I agree with you that the key distinguishing feature, this is why it's so confusing. I was trying to think of it. Was it just brown people? No. Is it just poor people? No, because I have brown students with nice cars that are getting stopped. It's like, well, it seems to cut across class and racial lines, obviously gender lines as well. The only common factor uniting ICE is this cultish-like loyalty to Trump. And that's what it is, as you outlined it. It's the private military force of Trump.
And there's also a problem that's been well noted with American police, where a lot of them want to be action heroes. A lot of the people I know who became police were like very socially awkward and stuff. And now that I'm like an adult, when you're a kid and you see police, you're like, wow, they're like above me, they're the superhero or whatever. But when you're an adult, you see police who are your age and you're like, you're a goofball. You shouldn't have a gun. You're a dumbass. You have no emotional control. So you have these guys who want to be action stars. I mean, you can just Google it on the internet, people who do ride along with police, and they're like, holy shit. They fucking tore at 100 miles an hour through a residential neighborhood to get to like a cat stuck in a tree because they wanted to feel like an action hero. And then those people who get kicked off the force for using too much force or whatever can go join ICE now. It's like the bottom of the barrel, the most violent, depraved sections of our society. And someone says they've demonstrated conclusively they're targeting U.S. citizens. Yes, and not only that, I was explaining this to a conservative who I follow on Twitter, and he follows me, or on X, because he said people are acting like I'm a Zionist because I support ICE. And I said, well, ICE is receiving blacklists from the Canary Mission, a foreign-controlled Zionist organization that lists anybody who's pro-Palestine as a virulent anti-Semite. And it's been proven that the Canary Mission was giving ICE lists of people to target based on their ideology, not even based on their immigration status. So ICE is already targeting people ideologically, anybody who criticizes Israel or the US government. So yes, actually, if you support ICE full stop because you don't want, 10 million immigrants to flood into the country from some other country that we destroyed, then you are kind of aligning yourself with the with the IDF and Zionists, because they're working with ICE to repress pro-Palestinian, anti-Zionist voices. And it should be obvious, but a lot of these conservatives are so blinded by their immigrant hatred that they can't see the reality right in front of their faces. These small government conservatives who support fucking ICE, idiots. The guy I'm talking about is not an idiot. I'm just going off because it's a stupid position.
I didn't even know that about the Canary stuff and the blacklist. That's worrisome, because at any moment all of us can get targeted, and this is we can speak about it through a historical lens and a theoretical lens, how fascism develops, but it's the open, most terroristic dictatorship of finance capital. And the cutting edge of finance capital, if it had to be embodied in a country, it's the U.S. and Israel, and that link, that relationship, that imperial connection. And this is the open terroristic dictatorship of finance capital coming to fruition that Dimitrov talked about. Now, where's the difference that we have between the leftoids who say, okay, we have to vote Democrat and all this shit? It's like, we know the Democrats are an integral moment of this trajectory. They are a part of it. This trajectory towards fascism couldn't have happened without them. They are an important component of it. They're part of the same system. And as a component of the ascension or descending into fascism, they cannot be the answer. It's structurally impossible. If the thing is what gets you from point A to point B, if you want to prevent getting to point B, you can't go through the slide that's directed you to point B. So this is why I think an organization like the ACP is absolutely indispensable in our time. Who else could be doing any of this? And look, there's other people that are organizing around this in the U.S. or in the U.S. left. We repeat again, I feel like we've been doing every stream. We are happy as the ACP to work with anyone who wants to work on these common issues that befall the American people, whether it's this extra constitutional body of ICE terrorizing communities or U.S. imperialism, all of which is connected to each other, because what we see with ICE is the chickens coming home to roost. It's the same imperial boomerang of violence. The violence we carry out there comes back in. How's like saying it's the Lenin quote of a nation that oppresses another cannot be free. I like to add the very Hispanic pivot that it was actually a Peruvian lawyer, Dionisio Yupanqui, who said that in 1810 in the Cadiz courts, and then Marx took it, and Engels took it, and then Lenin took it. But it's getting scary, and we can either jibber jabber and fight over dumb, retarded secondary and tertiary contradictions, or we can realize, all right, we have to fucking come together if we want a chance at being in a good state to fight back when this all fucking collapses and burns in front of our eyes, which is not going to happen because of us. It's going to happen in spite of us, and we have to be able to do something and take responsibility for what's going to be happening to our country.
Yeah, that's the thing about the revolutionary position, is people think like, we're creating a civil war or something, when capitalism decays into that on its own, and we're just aware of it and prepared for it. and we understand that Bernie Sanders and the Democrats aren't going to fix this system before those contradictions come to a head. And the real nature of politics is revealed, which isn't in this abstract formalism and these elections. It's it has a real material basis. Who controls the armed bodies of the state? Who controls the resources? These are the things that determine who has the power, and that's why we need a sovereign organization free from the Democrats to build itself up and be able to defend the working class as things break down, and to be able to take advantage of that political crisis and move the country forward to construct something new out of the ashes of the old system, which decays inevitably. So yeah, that's important to understand. I think it takes a while for people to understand that too. It took a while for me, because 4 years ago, it didn't necessarily seem like America was headed for an inevitable civil war, whereas now it seems like the writing is on the wall. And I've heard even adults say that who are like apolitical are telling me, I've never seen anything like this. Someone said it to me in the gym the other day. They just came up and asked me, like, are we going to civil war? I'm like, I don't know. Probably. Get ready. Join the party.
Yeah, you made a point there.
Master Potato. Thank you, comrade.
Thank you so much, comrade. There, you made an important point there. Like people hear revolution and they think like the French Revolution or the American, like this armed revolt against the ruling order. Look at the two major revolutions in the 20th century, communist ones. Was that what happened in the Soviet Union? No, the Soviet Union, I mean, Russia had this like power vacuum that was created with the Kerensky government, its inability to obtain legitimacy after the revolution in February of 1917. And what is it that the communists do? Like, there's already a situation basically of civil war. They just take power because they're the force that shows itself capable of unifying the nation and providing people with peace, land, and bread. Those most basic symbols of what was needed at the time. The same thing with Mao. There was already a civil war that was being waged. The country was completely fractured into warlordism and different powers fighting against each other. What do the communists do? They don't create the situation. They deal with it. They take responsibility for it and put forth a plan that can unify the nation and bring the people together. Perhaps the only exception could be Cuba. But even there, like, was Batista really a stable order? Or could you make the argument that the intensity of the capitalist dictatorship that existed in Cuba at that time was already a sign of like a civil war on the horizon? Definitely. And all that the Cubans did was react to it. And they very clearly had popular support because 12 guys.
I was going to say, it started with 12 people. Of course it was about to pop off, you know?
If you were able to win with 12 guys, you know, that the vast majority of the population, if not basically everyone who wasn't a police goon of Batista, was with you. So that's always how it's been. And we got to take this fucking bourgeois, almost like voluntarist image away from our head. Like, it's not, a revolution is not us picking up guns and going storming the fucking Capitol like J6ers or something. It's much different. It's like the collapse is happening. We have to react, and then we show ourselves to be the most capable force for reconstructing in that ruin that's presented to everyone by the system's own degeneration.
Absolutely. I don't even have anything else to add on that. That was good. Do you have any other topics you want to cover?
No. It's been, the last like 3 days have been so many conversations. I've doubled my coffee intake in order to crank out the shows, do writing, because I wrote an article throughout these days. I've edited papers and oversaw translations of paper for the journal, and I've done literally so much in the last few days. I've edited shit, done videos, and it's been insane. So yeah, I'd be happy to wrap it up here. I have two really good guests coming up for Escaping the Cave. Tomorrow, we're going to be posting an interview I did with Nico House. Very interesting individual. He was the one that ran Tulsi Gabbard's campaign back when she was based. He was one of the main people exposing corruption within the Democratic Party. And our conversation is primarily about Zoran Mamdani and how all these fucking left libtards were able to fall for it again. And then the day after that, I have one with Rathbone, who is competing with our good friend Jackson on most of the anti-Semite of the year polls, or as he likes to call it, antiseptics. So that should be really good. So hope you guys are enjoying the show. Give me feedback wherever you have. The only feedback I've gotten is like extremely mixed feedback about the intro. Some people say they absolutely love it. Other people say it's like AI slop, and those people sound like boomers. So I'm gonna keep it just so that they keep talking about it in the comments and boosting the video inadvertently.
Yes, and speaking of which, boost those videos when you check them out. That's what I was gonna plug is Carlos's show. I would check that out. I think it's one of the coolest things we put out lately. The interviews are really good, and it's nice to get connected with other people who maybe aren't communists and kind of draw them into our sphere through that, and use them to sort of boost our message to more ears. So I really like that idea for a show. I think it's good. I know you're not getting to interview as many philosophers as you want, but honestly, I think it's fine, and it actually works better this way for the growth of Midwestern Marx. So yeah, everybody check that out and make sure to give it a boost, Escaping the Cave. And then, of course, we have our Patreon account, which I need to update. This is literally, we don't use these logos for anything anymore. These are like the old logos from 2020. So I need to update it, but we still have a bunch of exclusive content on there. And Carlos's books are on there. You get a whole bunch of stuff just for giving us $10 a month, and then they don't take a bunch of your money like YouTube.
And if I can plug something else, I'm gonna be doing a whole lot more interviews and content in Spanish. I just put out a video, like a 25-minute video of me doing philosophy, me explaining what the Marxist position on ideology is, the different interpretations that have existed in the tradition, and I conclude with what I find the most meaningful in Zizek's understanding or critique of ideology, and that's in the Spanish channel. I have interviews with Mesilla, with communist Chavista that I did the other day there. He interviewed me for my Spanish channel. I posted it. It was a TikTok interview, and I also interviewed him for the party channel, which everyone should also check out. But if you can, those that are listening, it would help the legitimacy of that Spanish channel to help it grow a bit. It's at like 400 something subscribers now. So go subscribe if you have multiple accounts. Subscribe with the multiple accounts. It's going to be very active from now on. And because philosophers that speak English are fucking retarded, and a lot of them don't like Stalin and our geopolitics, I don't think they want to be seen connected with us. Even though, philosophically we can have very interesting conversations. They don't want that. So the Spanish world is much more based. So the idea is to do a lot of the Spanish interviews that I was hoping to do with a lot of the philosophy interviews I was hoping to do with Escaping the Cave, to do them in Spanish while I continue to do like geopolitics ones in English. So check that channel out.
Absolutely. And also check out the Red America Journal. My article on Yugoslavia and the Balkans will be in the next issue. It took me a long time and a lot of effort. Like Carlos said, we've been so busy this week, and that's what's been taking most of my time. So I hope you enjoy it. Yugoslavia is something I've been studying for a while and never gotten to do a full write-up on it. So yeah, it was very interesting to research for and stuff. So check that out.
I think it's some of Eddie's best writing. Extremely insightful, very detailed. So please, if you're going to read an article, so far this year it's the first issue, but subscribe to the journal and read that article. It's an essential piece of literature. Anything you need to know about Yugoslavia as a communist, everything is in there. Yeah,
and there's a lot of bullshit about Yugoslavia too. So I think once you read that, you'll be like, turn up your eyebrows when you hear Zizek or that guy James we were talking about earlier in the stream talking shit about Yugoslav socialism. Well, there's a lot to talk shit about, but saying that the dissolution was a good thing is such a disgusting position for a Westerner to take. So, well, Zizek was actually one of the people who helped dissolve Slovenia. But anyways, shout out to him. All right, thank you, everybody. Patreon.com/MidwesternMarks. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for supporting us. We'll see you on the next one.
Stand up, all victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your might. Don't cling so hard to your possessions, for you have nothing if you have no right. Let racist ignorance be ended, for respect makes the empires fall. Freedom is merely privilege extended, unless enjoyed by one and all. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in the song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. Let no one build walls to divide us, walls of hatred nor walls of stone. Come greet the dawn and stand beside us. We'll live together or we'll die alone. In a world poisoned by exploitation, those who have taken, now they must give. And end the vanity of nations. We've but one earth on which to live. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in the song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. And so begins the final drama, in the streets and in the field. We stand unbowed before their armor, we defy their guns and shields. When we fight, provoked by their aggression, let us be inspired by life and love. For though they offer us concessions, change will not come from above. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in a song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal